Study Section 4. The Portuguese Space Centers. The Portuguese Space Centers. Introduction. Of all the European states involved in the maritime explorations between the 15th and the 17th centuries, Portugal was the first to embark on such a venture. This study section, therefore, exposes you to the circumstances that enable the Portuguese play such a pioneering role. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this section, you should be able to 1. Identify the salient roles played by Prince Henry the Navigator in shaping Portuguese involvement in overseas exploration. 2. Describe in details the various activities of Portuguese-sponsored explorers and their voyages of discoveries. Terminology. Voyage. A long journey involving travel by sea or in space. Exploration. The action of exploring, investigation, study, observe, etc. an unfamiliar area. Prince Henry, the Navigator. In our examination of the pace-setting effort of the Portuguese in European attempts at overseas expansion between 1400 and 1498, the towering influence of Prince Henry, otherwise known as the Navigator, in determining the pace and direction of early voyages cannot be sidelined. It would therefore be appropriate to start with the contributions of Henry, for only with this background would the pioneering effort of Portugal during the age of Reconnaissance would become clear. Put differently, the contribution of Prince Henry made it possible for the Portuguese to pioneer European overseas expansion during our period. Two views that exist as regard the place of Prince Henry in the history of Portuguese expansion. Some think that his role has been exaggerated, while others opine that it deserves the emphasis placed on him. No one can, however, deny that he made a major contribution to the history of European exploration. Prince Henry was one of the sons of King John I of Portugal. It is a truism that Henry did not travel beyond Ceuta in Morocco, and yet the appellation Navigator has become synonymous with his name. This is perhaps in recognition of the prince as the prime mover of explorers, the planner, financier, and supervisor of several voyages that were embarked upon during his lifetime. When the impact of these voyages is stimulated is taken into cognizance, then it will not be too surprising why he is so named the Navigator. It was his determination which launched Portugal on a century of voyaging, discovery, conquering on a scale unprecedented in world history. A noble by birth and also in spirit, he was brave in heart and had a fantastic vision geared toward deeds which would improve and expand the glory of Portugal and Christendom. In 1415, when Henry was just 21 years, his father led a Portuguese expedition across the strait and captured a Muslim stronghold at the Moroccan seaport of Ceuta. To the king, while the expedition was partly aimed as a striking blow against the Muslims, it was also to offer his sons who were to be naked an opportunity to win their spoils in real battle. For young Henry, the Ceuta expedition afforded him an opportunity to further study Africa, its people, trade routes, and collect information about its sources. He received reports about the gold trade of the Moors and sought to determine the extent of Mohammedan power in Africa. For the purpose of European expansion, The occupation of Ceuta represents a novel situation in which an European nation possessed and overseas territory. In undertaking the administration and defense of the seaport, they had begun a process of European colonization. It had been argued that the experiences and information gathered at Ceuta by Prince Henry was a powerful tonic and stimulant which fired his imagination and conditioned his aspirations for the rest of his lifetime. For the first time, he was brought face to face with the Muslim world. Ceuta also pointed the way down the African coastline, and he was filled with the limitless possibility awaiting his countrymen. If only they had the initiative and leadership to take the advantage of the opportunity. Having learned from the Moorish prisoner about the caravan routes of the rich trading centers on the Caribbean and the Gold Coast, Henry aspired to outflank the great western shoulder of Africa to reach the Guinea. Also, he recognized that he had to outflank the Guinea to reach the southern end of Africa, and perhaps Africa itself to reach the Indies. Before the fall of Ceuta, Portuguese exploration had been casual activity of voyages into the unknown, had been sporadic, unplanned, and occasional. Records pertaining to such discoveries were either scanty or non-existent, but with the emergence of Henry into the scene, things began to change. Henry laid down a definite geographical policy, made a systematic and continuous campaign for exploration. Furthermore, he made discovery and art and science, and made exploration of new lands a national interest. By 1419, when he was made the governor of Algarve, a southern province of Portugal, Henry proceeded to Sagres, a city of the southern tip of his southern province. Here at Sagres, he established now famous Academy for Navigation. In the course of establishing the school, he assembled talented seamen, cartographers, astronomers, shipbuilders, geographers, and experts from different professional callings that had something to contribute to the enhancement of the voyage he sponsored. In bringing these experts together, he did not limit himself to the Portuguese alone, but invited Italians, Castilians, Danes, and even Arabs who wished to serve. From his school of navigation, he selected his captains and had them well instructed. He updated his maps with each new discovery, and this aided future explorers. As a result, Sagres Academy became the melting pot of ideas all over Europe and helped voyages of discovery to gain momentum. The Academy distinguished himself in two main areas. These are in the art of shipbuilding and map making. A lot of chart drawing was done at Sagres to the benefit of many sailors. As for the ship made in Sagres, Cadamosto noted that the ship emanating from Portugal became reputed as the best in Europe. Of course, the design of these ships were in most cases drawn at Sagres. The actual proof of the accomplishment of the Sagres Academy is exemplified by the Eretrian voyages and the colonial development which resulted from them. Henry's first enterprise was the conquest and the colonization of the Atlantic islands. It is true that the islands of Madeira and Azores had probably been visited by Genoese in the middle of the 14th century, yet the effective colonization of the two islands are credited to Henry. The Portuguese voyages of discovery. By the time of Henry's death in 1460, about 2,000 of the African coastlines has been discovered. In 1434, Gilles Ernst rounded Cape Bajodo after much persuasion from Prince Henry. Hitherto, no exploration has gone beyond the Cape for the imagined danger that lay beyond the Cape. This fear stemmed from the erroneous belief that all whites who went beyond the Cape would turn to Negroes because of the scorching tropical sun. To some others, there was the notion of the sea beyond the Cape being boiling hot and so injurious to sailors. It is against the background that the successful rounding of the Cape represents a shattering of a psychological obstacle that had all along kept sailors in check. The shattering of this myth through Atlantic south of the Cape opened to exploration as more explorers now had the courage to embark on voyages down the coast. It is therefore not surprising that the following year, Alfonso Badaya, one of the Prince Henry sailors, covered over 400 miles beyond Cape Bojado. By 1436, the Portuguese had reached Real de Oro, River of Gold. The 1440s also marked a significant leap in the Portuguese exploration venture. They got to Cape Blanco and later proceeded to discover the mouth of Senegal and Gambia. In 1442, Cape Verde Island was sighted, and a year earlier, gold calves had made another breakthrough by bringing back from south of Cape Bojado some gold dust and Negro captives. This was again psychologically uplifting as more people got convinced about the enormous riches that lay in the bosom of Africa. As for the capturing of Negroes, it ushered in 4 centuries of man's inhumanity to man in the name of slave trade. The trip of Goncalves subsequently engendered the flow of trade, especially as regards gold and slaves, and this increased so much that Henry ordered the building of a Portland warehouse at Arguin Island in 1448, arguably the first European overseas slaving stations in Africa. By 1443, Nuno Tristan reached Arguin Bay, and in 1444, Denis Dias had extended the frontier so far explored to Cape Verde. Between 1448 and 1455, there was a lull in exploratory activities, perhaps due to certain domestic problems in Portugal. However, by 1455, voyages resumed, and after that year, 2 notable voyages were undertaken by Henry, sponsored Venetian voyagers named Cadamosto. Cadamosto got to the Mount Senegal and kept a detailed account of the country and its inhabitants. In 1460, the year Prince Henry died, one of his captains discovered the river and mountains of Sierra Leone. With this discovery during the lifetime of Prince Henry, the Portuguese were now sure that they had found a sea route to the land of Guinea, which until then they had only heard of from the Moors. They also felt that it was only a matter of time before they rounded the southernmost part of Africa and found a new sea route to the east. In short, the Portuguese had succeeded in their gold hunt, but were yet to realize the dream of meeting a Prester John, who also lived on the other side of the African continent. As for trade, the benefit that accrued from the discovery made Henry obtain from the king the sole right of visiting and trading in the Guinea coast. Henry gave this a religious tint when he obtained papal confirmation of his monopoly of converting Negroes to Christianity. It needs to be emphasized that though trading along the coast developed, from which trade took its cue, slave trade along the African coastline only became very significant with the discovery of America and the development of their Atlantic island. Henry died on the 13th of November 1460 at Sagres. He was a man that devoted his life and resources patronizing discovery and gathering geographical data to aid more discoveries. His pioneering effort in charting the path of exploration opened the way for his successors and subsequently laid the foundation for grand voyages. No doubt, Henry's judicious use of his monopoly in financing both foreign and Portuguese explorers is a pointer to his determination, and his achievements are eloquent testimonies of his greatness. Commenting on his place in the history of navigation, Raymond Beasley opined that if Columbus gave Castile and Aragon a new world in 1492, if da Gama reached India in 1498, if Diaz rounded the Cape of Tempest, and if Magellan made the circuit of the globe, their teacher and master was Henry the Navigator. Study section summary. In this study section, you have learned that 1. Prince Henry played important roles in the Portuguese quest for overseas ventures. 2. Henry became not just a motivator of explorer, but a sponsor of many voyages of discovery down the African coastline. 3. More importantly, the quality of learning and knowledge produced in Sagres, especially with regards to exploration issues, laid a solid foundation to the entire Europe's age of discovery. 4. Before the close of the 15th century, the Portuguese pioneers had effectively established substantial progress in the exploration of hitherto unexplored lands. 5. They not only established their presence in the places they go to, but began the process of colonization of these areas. The nature of the Portuguese activities in the Newfoundland shall be the subject of our next discussion. End of study section 4. Thanks for listening.